Welcome to the Tuesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday. Welcome, everybody. What is going on? Quad Bennett, welcome to winter. We finally got snow. Congratulations. It's so fluffy. Congratulations. Well, we have, at least here, there's not really much of that. Our winter weather will continue for the next, 2 months maybe, at most. And I don't have to shovel it. That's nice. We Canadians export snow, not import. That's true. Stop being such a follower. Also, on that same note, make sure you, follow, like, subscribe, all that awesome stuff. Michael Hassler, welcome. Conscious Canuck. Also, yes, make sure you join the Discord, as on the last Saturday of the month, there is a movie night, movie day, movie evening. Firefly, welcome. My OT got cut short, but meh. Living wage time, exactly. Join the Discord. We do have that monthly movie night, and also you get to get any alerts on the channel. So lots of reasons. There's also some fantastic folks on the Discord, so I'm just saying. Thank you for the offline follows, Cirrus9811, Vegan Leftist, Aya Chaya. Not even going to pretend I know how to pronounce that. Thank you for the offline follow. Thank you to 27, the 27 Club, 27, formerly known as $27. Thank you for the shout out. I appreciate it. All right, folks, we got to get through quite the amount of topics, news, stuff, I guess. So let's get to it.
Here's a wild story I've been looking into. Weed isn't even federally legal yet, but giant corporations are already ruining it. For consumers, for workers, and for everyone, really. TrueLeaf, the largest cannabis company in America, controls over 50% of the legal cannabis market in some states. If you combine them with their two biggest competitors in Florida, for example, they sold enough weed in 2022 to give every Floridian 7 joints.
You are basically taking over the Southeast. Is there any type of goal there?
Yeah, that's it. So.
You could be using their products without even knowing it. They create brands that evoke small brands and pair up with our most trustworthy celebrities, like Wiz Khalifa and whoever these guys are. TrueLeaf built an empire by exploiting policy mistakes in legalization, using their power to create those mistakes, and taking advantage of well-meaning programs. For example,
yeah, corporations do indeed ruin everything. Yep, including weed. Make money, that's all.
The giant publicly traded corporation somehow got the only minority-owned license for a dispensary in Alabama. And they're already working to do the same tricks they did in states federally.
Do you have a lot of lobbyists in Washington right now, Kim?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do.
Did TrueLeaf...
Do you have a lot of lobbies in Washington? Yeah, you know. When the inevitability that these fossils in Washington decide that, like, legal weed is viable politically, the lobbyists are already there to ruin it for everybody. Cool.
This story shows us what we can learn about how a weed economy shouldn't be run, and how a good one could be run. This is The Classroom for a More Perfect Union. And today we're talking about how to stop big industry from bogarting our weed economy.
Whenever you redistribute income,
The redistribution fallacy. Get out of here.
That's the last time America decided
Also, like one of the, well, fundamentally, I think the problem here is monopolization, right? That's the core root of the issue here is monopolization.
to make a substance illegal and then change its mind. The repeal of prohibition. Incredibly influential businessmen like John D. Rockefeller had once supported prohibition, but when they saw it simply wasn't working, they moved to end it. Rockefeller specifically took a surprising stance for one of the most bloodthirsty capitalists of all time. He wrote, quote, "Only as the profit motive is eliminated is there any hope of controlling the liquor traffic in the interests of a decent society." And that's coming from a dude who really understands profit motive. Back in the 30s, the United States government took antitrust, that's preventing monopolies, far more seriously than it does today. So in an attempt to keep the alcohol industry from becoming monopolized, they implemented a tier system. No one company could be the manufacturer, distributor, and retailer of alcohol products. Now, giant alcohol companies are a problem today, but the problem could have been way worse without that regulation. But let's look at weed. Zooming in on Florida's first legalization initiative and the dawn of Trulieve. In 2014, the Florida state legislature was building out a bill to legalize certain low THC strains of cannabis for medical uses.
The bill wasn't written by a progressive cannabis advocate like you might think.
But by Matt Gaetz. Then
What? This was written by Matt Gaetz? Well then. It'll become legal federally when the corporate cartels hold 90% of the industry. True.
a member of the Florida House of Representatives. Yeah, that guy. It was boosted by strong supporter Representative Halsey Beshears. Medical cannabis laws are complicated because they basically have to create an entire industry and how it runs from scratch. There need to be regulations on everything from labels to who can get licenses. During the debates on the bill, an amendment was added by Representative Matt Caldwell that said in order to get a license to grow the newly legal cannabis, a nursery must already have approval to grow 400,000 plants and have operated as a registered nursery in this state for at least 30 continuous years. 30 years. The amendment also added requirements for pre-existing real estate.
So in other words, only like very large operations would be able to do this.
Ownership and capital, requiring wannabe licensees to give the government $5 million in cash as assurance they could run the business. Who could possibly meet all of those qualifications? Well, there was Simpson Nurseries, the oldest nursery in Florida, opened in 1902. Simpson Nurseries was the family company of the Beshears. Yeah, that guy, the representative from earlier. To fully meet the qualifications, Simpson entered a partnership with Hackney Nurseries.
Wow, phenomenal stuff.
Also run by the Beshear family. The combined partnership got one of the just 5 licenses that Florida gave out after that bill. The combined company was Trulieve. But wait, there's no evidence of corruption here, right? Beshear's being involved isn't enough. Where would he have even gotten the idea for this? His family was supposedly, quote, opposed to growing cannabis. Well, like so many great scandals, there was a total idiot involved. In 2016, a Florida businessman, J.T. Burnett, was being investigated for a number of crimes, and undercover FBI agents recorded a conversation with him. He bragged to the FBI agents that he had, quote, worked through the bill with Beshears, a childhood friend of his, over the course of one afternoon, and convinced him to push little tweaks to the bill. Those little tweaks were the amendment that broke the whole cannabis law, the one we just told you about. At the time, Burnett had a girlfriend, Kim Rivers. Today, they're married, and Rivers is the CEO of Trulieve.
Do you have a lot of
Well,
lobbyists
well,
in Washington right
well.
now, Kim?
Yes, we do.
Burnett and Rivers don't come
Well. No corruption involved in this whatsoever. Looks like the idiots are set to impeach DHS head Mayorkas. Yeah, and yet President Biden is talking about how Congress needs to send him a bill to shut down the border. There's just no reason to appease these people. See what trying to capitulate to them looks like? What corruption? In the big weed, okay? Big weed.
Come from backgrounds in cannabis, healthcare, criminal justice, or even retail, but rather finance, including Inkbridge LLC, a firm notorious for using government funding for private ventures. It's also invested in Trulieve. Burnett and Rivers were also involved in real estate and construction and used their own companies to build Trulieve properties. Florida's first cannabis law and its largest cannabis business, Trulieve, were built on corrupt, pro-business, anti-worker, anti-consumer, anti-competitive practices by people with only their own interest in mind. But this is by no means limited to Florida or...
No way. Capital? Leading to this feedback loop? No way. Good evening, just turning in. Is this clip about drugs or corruption? Both. Well, I mean, weed isn't really like a drug. But yeah, it's about cannabis and corruption. Keep it small, weed, JK, the South Park again with Randy.
Or limited to Trulieve.
The lobbying for federal legalization currently is dominated by large cannabis companies and large alcohol and tobacco companies. And Amazon has endorsed federal legalization as well.
Oh man, I can see it. I can see it now. You can get Amazon Prime, Amazon Prime cannabis for 1-day delivery, okay? Amazon Prime guaranteeing you 1-day delivery on your cannabis. Need some integrity. Yeah.
What's really important
Unfortunately, you're not going to find that in Florida, huh?
to notice is that their job is easy because they want a corporate free-for-all. So all they have to ask for is legalization and nothing else.
This is Shalene Title, a drug policy advocate who's been instrumental in passing equitable cannabis laws.
She was also a commissioner for the Massachusetts Cannabis Commission, the body formed to regulate cannabis when that state legalized.
So when I served as a regulator, I was lobbied. Lobbying is something that anybody can do, but it tends to be the larger corporations that have the ability to really closely follow this regulation-making process and then to come to the regulators with exact language.
Right. They have the money, the research, the time. I mean...
And the industry is taking notes from alcohol and tobacco lobbyists.
They have front groups like patients or consumers or workers claiming to represent their own interests, but in fact, they are representing the corporations.
But back to Trulieve. They had a little problem. In other states, the licensing structure had also been perverted by people like them, meaning it was very hard for new businesses to move in. But they had something those other businesses didn't: capital and power. So they just started buying existing businesses and their licenses in other states. This strategy is deadly for small businesses because licenses are in such small supply. By 2021, they were operating in 5 states through a series of acquisitions and made their biggest purchase yet, Harvest Health, which gave them 6 more states. It also allows Trulieve to continue vertical integration. That's where they own every part of the process from production to retail. The very same thing that regulators in the 1930s knew would monopolize the alcohol industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like exactly how Amazon operates. Massachusetts, where I live, I talked to Mass Office on disability on phone today. I'm glad I'm not bothering to partake, can't get high, so why bother? Just wish corporations didn't race to completely crap over literally everything in existence. Yeah, I mean, like, this is more about, like, capitalism than it is about weed, right?
Trulieve's size also puts them in a position of power over their workers, who they've union busted multiple times, all while workers are dying in their facilities. 27-year-old Trulieve worker Lorna McMurray died from what the CDC ruled to be occupational asthma due to poor ventilation in the plant. Trulieve denied all responsibility and just went harder on union busting. Because cannabis is such a young business, we as a nation haven't decided how it'll be run yet.
All right, guys, just wanted to show the completed
Oil. This isn't.
Is there Massachusetts corruption? I'm sure there is. Take it from your friendly neighborhood stoner. These places always charge the most and often have the worst quality stuff. You would imagine it would be the opposite, right? You would imagine it would be the opposite. Capitalism does ruin everything.
Pharmaceuticals. This isn't tobacco or alcohol or railroads. Any of the other exploitative businesses that have plagued America for decades. This is something new.
New York has been a great example of a state that has learned lessons from every other state. First, they focused on social equity, which means that they gave the first licenses to nonprofits and to people who had been harmed by the war on drugs. But then the second thing that they did was they enforced anti-monopoly provisions.
Oh, so, you know, the right way of doing it. By all means, if cannabis isn't legal right now, please legalize it. For what I read, since alcohol is far more dangerous for your health, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, like, it's not even a matter of, like, alcohol. Like, it's literally nobody's business as to what I decide to do. You know? You know, especially not the government's business. You know? If I want to smoke weed, then, like, the government doesn't need to be involved in that. New York is doing really well these days. What does that mean? A person who has been banned in a bunch of channels, including carpet packs and feminist critique. Way to expose me. Yeah, well, you know, being a troll usually gets around really quickly. Okay? Doesn't take that long.
So in New York, you can't control the entire supply chain.
New York also has pro-labor provisions, like mandatory labor peace agreements for acquiring licensure.
Because New York has put the most effective rules in place, they've also got, in my observation, the most pushback. A whole campaign, really, to represent the New York agency as irresponsible, when in fact it has taken these really effective measures.
And even the most well-meaning regulations can be exploited by corporate cannabis. Like I said earlier, the only minority-owned license in Alabama went to Trulieve. So that tells us what we should look for if the United States ever outright legalizes cannabis. But let's get back to reality. President Biden might reclassify cannabis soon.
I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to initiate a
Landom Lazy Lizard, thank you for the raid and follow. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody.
process to review how marijuana is scheduled under federal law.
That means moving it down from Schedule 1, where it sits with cocaine and heroin, down to Schedule 3. But while rescheduling cannabis might get Biden a quick win in the polls, it really doesn't do anything, and could give big cannabis business even more power.
It's a step in the wrong direction, in my opinion. Schedule 3 would only protect.
Dang, and here I was thinking that was actually a good thing to deschedule cannabis. I guess I was wrong.
Products that have been approved by the FDA. So that's a process that could take about 10 years, millions of dollars.
And only the biggest companies can do that. The big guys also have resources and motive to use that preferred legal status to shut down the little guys who couldn't afford to get FDA approval.
But here's the thing. We just spent all this time talking about giant weed conglomerates, and they might not even be the real problem here.
So I have likened this to dinosaurs squabbling when the asteroid is coming. Right now, we have cannabis businesses of all different sizes. They're competing to see who can do the best in the cannabis market. But there's this asteroid, which is the enormous companies. For example, Altria. Altria's market cap is bigger than the entire cannabis industry combined.
And it goes even bigger. Amazon has been supporting federal cannabis legislation. And I highly doubt it's because their shareholders just really want to stop people from getting needlessly arrested.
Yeah, right. Like I said, I can already see it. Amazon, you know, how Amazon has its own brand. I can see that. Amazon weed comes in 1-day shipping. Legalize it, exactly.
And our friends at Trulieve have been focusing on federal legalization too.
Just legalization is essentially handing a monopoly to these companies. If you care about public health, about racial equity, about workers' rights, you have to ask for all of these things to be incorporated into legalization. Because in the end, if we end up just having 2 or 3 companies that are making all of the profits from marijuana and perhaps lying to consumers and
What? Companies would never do that. Really? Yeah, there's only one reason why Amazon would support this legislation is because they want in on it too. Yeah, looking for the weed ads on Twitch. Coming soon, okay? Coming soon.
exploiting workers and the environment, then I'm not sure that we even made an improvement.
Thank you so much for watching the
That's such a very good point. You know, it's not just the idea of legalization. It's also like making sure that the guardrails are in place because capitalism, essentially. Capitalism literally ruins everything. Where's the Twitch weed ads? Coming soon.
Well, it seems like Lauren Boebert may have actually screwed herself by switching districts. So she currently represents Colorado's 3rd congressional district, which is more of a swing district, and she only won it by 546 votes in 2022. But after Republican Ken Buck in CD4, the next district over, announced that he'd be retiring, she decided to abandon her old district that she nearly lost in 2020.
Also, like, the hilarity of it is, like, no matter which way you slice it, it looks like she was done, no matter what path she took, because the current district that she represents would have been a pretty tough battle, and she might have even lost. Now, in lieu of that, she tried to seat shop, and it doesn't look like that's gonna pan out for her too. From the German perspective, here in Germany, we got a basic law which requires a state to kind of protect the health of its citizens. In order to do that, some drugs need to be legal by law. Yeah, but like also, like, the state has no business. The state has no business, like, what an individual citizen does, you know, in terms of like their own private domicile, their own private life. It's none of the state's business.
And Brennan Ken Buck's, since it's a more solidly Republican district and thus a safer seat. The problem is that she now has to compete in a GOP primary, and the earliest gauge that we have of that race indicates that Republicans in the new district she's trying to run in aren't actually a very big fan of her. Kelly Risman of The Independent reports Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert finished in 5th place according to a straw poll, a devastating showing after the Republicans switched to run in a new district. Last week, Ms. Boebert competed against 8 other Republicans in a congressional primary debate in Fort Lupton, Colorado, in which she garnered just 10% of the straw poll vote, landing in 5th place, according to Colorado Politics. Ms. Boebert earned 12 out of the 117 votes cast in the straw poll, the outlet reported. Damn. Now, there's a couple of caveats, okay? First and foremost, obviously, this is very early, and the sample size is super small, so it's not representative of the entire district. But having said that, though, this is still disastrous because we're talking about an incumbent Republican with national name recognition who was aligned with Donald Trump, the cult leader of the Republican Party. So it shouldn't have even been close. It should have been a blowout. But GOP voters in this district, they're like, we have Lauren Boebert and a bunch of other people. We're going to opt for the no-name Republicans over her. That is so wild to me. And to make matters worse, all of the local headlines in Colorado are talking about her 5th place finish because this really isn't something that a lot of people expected. For example, here's one headline from Colorado Politics. Quote, Lauren Boebert finishes in the middle of the pack in straw poll at inaugural GOP primary debate. And they go on to explain who's ahead of her. Quote, out of 117 votes cast, Logan County Commissioner Jerry Sonnenberg, a former longtime state lawmaker, led the straw poll.
That's hilarious. From 2021 Boston, JCO Carreras, a former master convicted by federal jury in a connection with scheme to defraud investors and extorting marijuana vendors for thousands of dollars, was convicted. Yikes. Jeez.
Poll with 22 votes, followed by former House Minority Leader Mike Lynch of Wellington, who received 20 votes, Douglas County filmmaker Deborah Flora at 18 votes, and House Minority Whip Richard Holtorf of Akron with 17 votes. Boebert got 12 votes, narrowly edging out former congressional nominee Peter Hughes 11 votes with 3 more candidates. So I find this incredibly hilarious, obviously, because rather than going with MAGA superstar Lauren Boebert, Republicans at this debate chose to go with some obscure-ass county commissioner. That has got to hurt if you're Lauren Boebert. And it's not just that Republicans...
You know, it serves her right, honestly. It serves her right.
Seemingly weren't impressed by her. She actually faced some hostility at this forum. Colorado Newsline reports, as expected, Boebert faced sharp questions about her decision to move into a new congressional district to escape a rematch with Frisch. Quote, could you give the definition of carpetbagger? Lynch asked Boebert. Flora also asked a similar version of the question and referenced Boebert's criticism of a Democratic opponent from the 2022 cycle who lived outside of the 3rd congressional district post-redistricting. That's some hypocrisy burning right there. Boebert said she is proud to be Weld County's newest resident. Quote, my boys and I needed a fresh start. That's been very public of what home life looked like, she said.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's only one way of describing this, and that's oof. T-minus 2011, thank you for the follow. Welcome.
Boebert is newly divorced, and her ex-husband was recently arrested for alleged domestic violence incidents involving her and her son. Quote,
yeah, and also, wasn't this the same ex-husband who exposed himself to minors? Yeah. Yeah. Watching Beetlejuice is a good way to relax. Womp womp. Yeah, it's the same guy. Phenomenal.
I tried to put it into a very pretty package and bring my ex-husband lots of honor, but since there's nothing private about my personal life, it is out there and my boys need some freedom from what has been going on, she said. But in a telling moment, no other candidate said they would support Boebert in the primary if they were not running. 4 people said they would support Sonnenberg. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Now, to make matters worse, she was seemingly humble bragging at the start of the forum.
Whenever a majority opposes Trumpism, we need to clap. Honestly, like, you know, sure. But that's like the bare minimum, right?
And she said something to the effect of, look, I'm here to earn your vote. I'm here to earn your support. This is not going to be a coronation. And I find that really funny because you probably wouldn't say something like that unless you wanted to make your opponents who you thought you would beat feel better because voters would overwhelmingly side with you. But I mean, that's not the case. So it's funny to me that she said that. And if you'll notice, she wasn't able to define carpetbagger. And using her ex-husband as an excuse to switch districts is so bizarre to me. Yes, he was arrested for alleged domestic violence, so she has my sympathy there. That's not her fault. However, it feels gross to use that as a justification to switch districts because we all know that you switch districts specifically because if you stayed in District 3, you would have lost to the Democrat. So you can still get a fresh start by moving somewhere else in your old district. It's a very large district. But I mean, She's not doing that. She's using that as an excuse, which is so weird to me. But I mean, this is Lauren Boebert we're talking about here, so she's not running to actually serve her constituents. Everything is about her. And she's kind of gotten a big head since being in Congress, and maybe that arrogance is coming back to bite her in the ass. It's already starting to, at least. But I mean, you can't blame her for being cocky when there are people who say things like this about her. So Reddit user CrunchM shared.
Yeah, dude. True. Lauren Boebert is the right-wing Taylor Swift. Oh my god. What are the chances the guy in the MAGA hat got a handy during the forum?
This
no comment.
Mind-boggling tweet on the white people Twitter subreddit, and it almost made my head explode. So it's from Scott Greer, who lists his height and IQ in his Twitter handle. And
yeah, a very serious, you could tell that this is a very serious account when they have a blue check mark and they put their height and alleged IQ, which, by the way, is not impossible, but like, I mean, let's be honest. Lauren Boebert is barely 1% smarter than Marjorie Taylor Greene. I wish I didn't need to say it, but unfortunately, that's the current state in the U.S. Well, the current state in the U.S. is pretty dismal. That's for sure.
And, it doesn't necessarily scream confidence to me, even though that's what he's trying to project.
Yeah, an IQ of 187 is definitely way above average.
But my only question is, okay, but what about your location and social security number? List that in your bio or in your Twitter handle, and I'm going to definitely think you're confident. But anyways, he says, to those who might say the right needs its own Taylor Swift for young women to look up to, nobody's saying that, but whatever, I answer, we already have that. Her name is Lauren Boebert.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason for any young woman to look up to Lauren Boebert as an actual role model, okay? Unless the role model you're after is like, again, these are Republicans, so supposedly on paper, they tend to believe in like family values and marriage and all this other stuff. Yeah. And Boebert is supposed to be the role model here? IQ 187 does not apply to MAGA. Yeah, not that again, an IQ of 187 is incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. So this dude's lying.
Needless to say, I don't agree with Scott Greer, 6'2", IQ of 187. It's just, can we maybe go back to the time where we view politicians just as politicians and not as celebrities? God, American politics, such a mess right now. And for those wondering, no, he's not trolling. This is an actual right-winger who has this opinion, unironically. Now, it's just shocking that anyone would view Lauren Boebert as a role model. I mean, even if you're trying to find specifically Republican women to be role models, there are better ones than Lauren Boebert, because Lauren Boebert isn't a good role model given the fact that she likes to publicly shame victims of rape. She wrote this on Twitter.
Also, like, she's perfectly fine with like teen pregnancy. Clearly she's, been involved in several scandals. Yeah. Alio with the 12 biddies. Thank you, I appreciate that. I got an IQ of 137. I thought that was average. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what is considered average. I do know that 187 is, yeah. Pretty up there. IQ, they make shows about those folks. That's an Einstein territory. Gotcha. Yeah, she's a grandma. Posting about IQ and height just makes one look insecure. 100%, they're conservative. 100% conservative. You have an IQ of 200. Yeah, maybe if all of us put ourselves together, then yeah. Mouselander, welcome. MAGA does not. Now, if MAGA wants to grift, then MAGA excels. Well, no, there's plenty of grifters,
Recently, an $83 million judgment given to a woman.
You don't need to be smart to be a grifter, right?
Woman who can't even tell you the date or time she encountered President Trump. The precedent this sets for men in this country is absolute terrifying.
Also, like, that's not up for debate. The reason why the judgment was done is because, he defamed her about a real situation that happened to her. he defamed her about a real sexual assault. He defamed her about a real sexual assault that happened and lied about it and defamed her. Now she's claiming damages. That's what this is about. So you could spin it however you want. But this is just not true. You can tell yourself anything you want, but this is not true. She's just playing mental gymnastics. She's performing mental gymnastics to twist herself into pretzels, to make Trump look like the victim, actually. The role model.
It is truly unbelievable how weaponized our system of, quote, justice has become. I'm sorry, but does that seem like a wonderful role model for young women? She is attacking E. Jean Carroll at the behest of her rapist who defamed her, Donald Trump. What a real champion for women. If that is who you view as a role model for the GOP, then I guess that explains why the party is in the shape that it's in. But I mean, you kind of see why she's...
Well, I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, it does make sense that she would be a role model for the GOP, right? Now that I think about it. The state of like the conservative movement. Yeah, it would actually make perfect sense as to why she's being advocated to be the perfect role model. Lauren, go home.
Extremely arrogant, right? She's immersed in MAGA world. She's kind of become a superstar like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's part of the club. And when you're on top of the world, you probably feel like nothing can bring you down, which makes it all the more painful when you inevitably get reality checked and then realize, I'm not as infallible as I thought. But on the subject of role models, Chris Perez of Denver Westward shared...
Look pretty, say inflammatory shit, check, victim blame. Yeah. Pretend to be about family values while being the complete opposite.
A video from the candidate forum she participated in and says, quote, incredible moment in first GOP debate for CD4 as candidates are asked to raise their hands if they've been arrested. 6 candidates raised their hands, including Lauren Boebert and Mike Lynch. They then proceeded to cheer and high-five each other. So here's a quick clip of that moment.
Yeah. The role model. Again, you know, like when you look at it from the perspective of like the GOP, it does make sense, right?
Do we get to say what for?
The amount of damage is just beyond any real damage which he could have ever done. The claim, however, is justified according to the court. The amount of damages, it just beyond real damage which he could have... I don't understand that part. Can you rephrase that?
Maybe it doesn't matter.
I love how she said it a second time to get more laughs, but they only thought it was kind of funny the first time. Embarrassing. Now, listen, I thought that this was supposed to be the party of law and order. The party who is against felons voting because that's what they're trying to do.
Oh, dude, it's almost like when they say something, they believe the exact opposite. What's the saying? Every accusation is just it's just a confession. Yeah. These people speak in double speak, okay? When they talk about law and order, they don't actually believe in that. When they talk about family values, they don't actually truly believe that, right? They don't actually live that. They want to impose that on the rest of the country, how they perceive how things should be, but they themselves don't believe. Yeah, exactly, bro. Yeah, I don't even need to say anymore. It's just rules for the Ian, not for me. But you better live by those rules. Not me, of course. Not me, of course.
On the country. But all of a sudden, having an arrest record is something to be proud of. And when it comes to Donald Trump, if he's convicted on any of his 91 charges...
Again, the role model. This is the person that young girls need to look up to. Law and order only means you will obey us, and Trump rules for 30 years. Law and order doesn't mean a single thing. Rules for thee and not for me. Exactly.
They all probably think that it's perfectly fine for him to be president, even though normal people lose their right to just vote if they're a felon, if they're convicted of a crime, right? So it's so hypocritical to see them all laugh about this after they've been on this whole tough on crime shtick for decades now.
Yeah, because it's a necessary component of fascism to be able to do this on the fly. It is a necessary component of fascism to be able to do this on the fly, to be able to like just on a dime without even thinking about it, hold completely contradictory thought processes. It doesn't matter. There's no critical thinking required here. And I think that's kind of the point. I think Bluebell is trying to say that the money doesn't make up for the personal ordeal she went through. Yeah, I guess, if that's the interpretation, then yes, I 100% agree.
And I wouldn't be as annoyed if they actually supported restorative justice and thought that felons should be allowed to vote. But the problem is they don't. So it's elitist because it comes across as, well, you know, when we do crimes, it's fine. But when poor people do crimes, they should lose everything, their right to vote. But when we do it, we can still run for president. We can still run for public office. It's just very gross. So, I mean, even if Lauren Boebert...
I can't verify if he's guilty of it. However, I'll never understand that you can get hundreds of millions of dollars from it. Well, there'll never be enough money in the world to equal what he's done to her. But yeah, the whole point is that he did. There's no, that's not up for debate. That wasn't the question that the court had to, that isn't the question that the court had to deal with. The question was that he defamed her, he lied about it, and caused damages because of the lie. Because, like, you can't defame somebody over a false story. If that never happened, there's nothing to be defamed about. It never happened. Does that make sense? But it did happen, and then he decided to defame her and lie about it. And publicly, like, drag her image. That's where this is all coming from. And in fact, he should have been wiped out for all the money he had. It's called damages. Should we take it from the flesh instead? He deserves it. Trump posted on social media about January 6th insurrection, but MAGA and Trump are so innocent.
Loses. CD4 very clearly is still going to go with some ghoulish Republican who's as bad as Bobo, if not worse. But with that being said, do I still hope that she loses? Yes, because I think it would be hilarious and possibly the biggest self-own in the history of American politics if she literally lost her election after switching districts specifically because she thought that she would have an easier time getting reelected. If that happened, oh, it'd be amazing. Like, you can't beat that. So I'm crossing my fingers and I'm hoping that the universe delivers.
Yeah. I think the irony is that he will have to post a bond of $83 million just to appeal it. Sorry for reaching a limit in my English. Again, I'm not a native. To be fair, the current amount he did make, the current amount did make him shut his hole. For now. Trump made a song with the January 6 rioters. Yeah, maybe I'm just reading this wrong, so just ignore me, Blue brother. Just ignore me. Trump made a song with the January 6 rioters. Oh man, is there like a YouTube link? No, it can't be on YouTube, is it? The bond will be $83 million plus 10%. Has Trump actually defamed her anymore since the $83 million penalty was handed down? No, I don't think so. I think he rage posted but I don't think he like mentioned or talked about it, as far as I know. But knowing this guy, it's very hard. It's very hard for him to keep his mouth shut. But who knows? Although it would be hilarious if he did it again, and then they end up in court, and he ends up losing even more tens of millions of dollars, and gets wiped out. That would be hilarious. In a civil case, you have to post the entire amount, not just 10%. No, it's according to Wolfglen, it's the entire amount, the 83 plus 10%. It's terrible, but more popular than Taylor Swift? I doubt it. For interest if he doesn't win the appeal. Gotcha. So he does have to put the entire amount plus 10% in the event that he doesn't win, which, come on, like, the dude already lost in court. This is just like what is it? A run through. Because like this was an open and shut case, okay? I think that if they would have put me as Jean Carroll's lawyer, I think I would have won. Okay. Trump lawyer Alina Habba backs off a conflict allegation against Jean Carroll against the judge. Oh man. Well, understanding spoken language is completely different from writing it. Okay. It is a lot easier for me to speak Spanish than it is for me to sit down and write it, even though I know how to do both. Even though I learned and grew up doing Spanish first, it's a little more difficult for me to write grammatically correct anyways, Spanish, than it is to speak it. Anywho. Shifting gears, White Lives Matter member gets 18 years for firebombing church that planned drag events. Yep. This is a result of stochastic terrorism, okay? All these ghouls who are talking about drag queens, okay? And who are talking about how drag queens are, child predators, has blame to shoulder over this, okay? A member of the pro-Nazi group, surprise, surprise, White Lives Matter was sentenced to 18 years of federal prison for firebombing an Ohio church that had been planning to host 2 drag events. Amy Penny, a 20-year-old far-right extremist from Ohio, was arrested last year after he made Molotov cocktails and threw them at the community church in Ohio, March of 23. Penny pleaded guilty in October to church arson, hate crimes, as well as using fire and explosives to commit a felony. Judge Mihan Brennan sentenced Penny to a total of 216 months in prison on Monday in a sentencing memo. The federal prosecutor said that church burnings have a long and sordid history in the U.S. and said that burning a church is as potent a symbol of hate as burning a cross on a lawn or leaving a hanging noose. According to prosecutors, Penny had previously traveled to Wadsworth, Ohio in advance of a drag queen story hour to distribute propaganda flyers for the group. During an interview with FBI, Penny said that he would have felt better if the Molotov cocktails were more effective and burned the entire church to the ground. Appearing in a court for sentencing, he did not apologize and justified his actions as protecting the children. It appears that Trump is having trouble finding any company to post a bond for him in New York. Shocker. 18 years? Did anyone die? It's irrelevant. Fuck this guy. It's irrelevant. He deserves it. He definitely deserves it. Also, again, like, he specifically listed that he was doing this to protect the children, which is like the exact same rhetoric we keep hearing over and over and over again with these far-right stochastic terrorists who continue to fan the flames. And I'm talking about like the Matt Walshes the Michael Knowles, the Daily Wire crew, the Charlie Kirks of the world, all of these people have blame to shoulder. Okay, all of these people have blame to shoulder for creating the environment as to which this happened. Does that make sense? I hope I'm wording it right. The point being is that all these stochastic terrorists, by constantly riling up their supporters, by constantly telling their millions of viewers that, drag queens are, child predators, and that they need to be dealt with and shut down. It was only a matter of time before something like this happened. This isn't the only incident, but you get my point. We apparently disagree. This guy should be sentenced for sure, but 18 years? Yeah, 100%. 18 years is too little. 18 years is too little. Protecting the children is code for protecting their own childish feelings. Appearing in court for sentencing, Penny did not apologize and justify its actions as protecting children, according to the dispatch. Like, we can't just have, light sentences for people who go around and doing this, okay? We just can't, okay? We just can't. No, 5 years wouldn't do to these extremists, okay? It's not, no. They need to be locked away for a very long time, if not forever, because, these people aren't, they're not just doing this and have any type of remorse, okay? They're driven by a pure ideological motive. They're not going to stop. These type of people, his only regret is that he didn't burn the whole church down. There was likely a hate crime modifier. 100% there was. The judge stated so. His only regret was that it didn't burn down the entire church. So, you know what? F this guy. Prosecutors said that he was a member of the White Lives Matter group, which they described as having racist, pro-Nazi, and homophobic views. Well, yeah. Inside Penny's vehicle, prosecutors wrote, authorities found M1 carbines, M4A1 carbine, 5.5. Okay, so an AR. 7 rifle magazines, a Ruger handgun, 3 magazines, a vest, a shield, knives. A search of its residence found a Glock, 4 magazines for the Glock, a Smith & Wesson MP5, MP15, a Walther P22, Iverson Johnson Arms shotgun, 15 magazines with loaded ammunition, various boxes of ammunition, and of course, Nazi memorabilia. Only Doc Brandon would rig the Super Bowl. True. Penny said the FBI wrote a manifesto and that took pride in the attack, claiming that he was respected for it in jail. The manifesto is full of twisted and false historical narratives, calls for war and violence and justification for his actions, and smearing of transphobic and anti-Semitic hatred. Wow, surprise, surprise. You really want this guy out in 5 years? Penny believed that he was doing God's work and that he steered history by attacking the church, prosecutors said. Penny authorities said appeared to have increasingly radicalized via online interaction since at least 2017. Wow, hey, that's weird. What happened around that time? Hey, reminder, what happened around that time? Is better equipped than most German criminals. Well, this is America, okay? Unfortunately, we have more guns and ammunition than people. And all readily available, too. I wonder what happened in around 2017. Can somebody remind me? And gravitated towards Nazi ideology and white supremacist groups. Matthew Olson, the Assistant Attorney General of the Justice Department's National Security Division, said the sentence held Mr. Penny accountable for carrying out violence against an Ohio church because he disagreed with the way congregants chose to express their beliefs, and that acts of extremist violence have no place in our community. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division said Officials hope the significant sentence sends a clear and resounding message that this type of hate-fueled attack against the church will not be tolerated in America. The defendant tried to burn down the church simply because its members created a space and provided support for the LGBTQ+ community. The Justice Department will vigorously investigate and prosecute such senseless, bias-motivated violence against people exercising their constitutionally protected right to practice their religion and express their beliefs. Yeah. So yeah, it's not just like that he deserves it, which he did, but it's also to send a message that like this kind of stuff is not okay. And every time one of these domestic terrorists get caught, it should be heavy penalties. 18 years is too little. 18 years is too little. Oh yeah, the 2017 is when the Green New Deal was ratified. True. So kind of on that same note of domestic terrorism, Northern Michigan man Russell Warren was threatened President Biden with bombings. Federal prosecutors on yesterday, charged a Northern Michigan man with threatening President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and alleged that he called for killing of federal agents, executing judges, dropping a mother effing bomb on Washington, D.C. The case against Prudentville resident describes a series of threats and statements posted on X, formerly Twitter. The posts were made by the Twitter account, which has 22 followers and was still active on Monday. Can you tell me why suddenly scrutinized by your Autobot? Autobot catches like random phrases. So yeah, sometimes it likes certain things and sometimes it doesn't. Like, apparently it didn't like the term German criminals. These people must think that the Secret Service was disbanded. Well, nobody said that these domestic terrorists were smart, okay? I mean, like, you could see, like, the type of person, that this guy was. I mean, look at this. A very normal and very hinged person. Look at this. Very normal. Very normal, very hinged. Okay. Slightly hinged. By the way, this account is still up, okay? In Elon Musk's Twitter. What's his beef with the Smithsonian? I don't know. Probably a left-wing indoctrination center. I don't know. On Thursday, the account featured a threat aimed at the nation's capital. A complete evacuation of Washington, D.C. must begin immediately. We're going to drop a mother effing bomb on it. On Friday, the account posted one threat targeting Biden. Take him to prisons to await execution. He shall be hanged. And there's a screenshot, which is, by the way, this account is still up on Elon Musk's Twitter. The case is the latest to be filed. The case is the latest to be filed nationwide among a surge in threats involving bombs and public officials. Warren is the 12th person charged with federal crimes involving threats to public officials this year. This year. Against 579 people since 2013. We've had dozens of these domestic terrorists. That is according to an investigation by National Counterterrorism Innovation, Technology and Education Center versus researchers Pete Simi of Chapman University and Seamus Hughes of University of Nebraska at Omaha. Warren was ordered temporarily held without bond until a detention hearing on Friday in federal court in Bay City. He was charged with one count of threats against the president and successors to the presidency, a felony that carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in federal prison. Warren's lawyer did not respond for comment. Yeah, The investigation started on Saturday after Secret Service and FBI learned about the Twitter account and threats. Agents reviewed the account, which featured dozens of nearly identical threats aimed at a variety of targets, including Harris, all current and former judges and magistrates, and bombing of FBI headquarters. The FBI headquarters shall be bombed, the Friday Post reads. All employees of the FBI have been condemned shoot to kill. Agents obtained subscriber information from XCorp that pinpointed the IP address to use being used by the account to connect the internet to being used by the account to connect to the internet since last week. Investigators discovered the IP address was owned by the cable company Charter Communications. Company officials told investigators one was a subscriber using that IP address. Yeah. Perfect advertising for this story. Yeah. The Mayo ad. Fits well. So that's cool. You know, just domestic terrorists just running around, firebombing churches and threatening, for the umpteenth time, you know, the country's political leaders. It's time to head to bed. See you soon. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate that. Okay. I could eat a mayo sandwich. Honestly, that's not that bad. Not that bad of an idea. Just have some like mayo, and a couple of things extra to that, maybe. Not just a straight mayo sandwich. I don't know if I could do just like a plain mayo sandwich. I don't know if I could do that. Although, mayo in a sandwich is pretty good. Mayo is gross? Nah, I don't think so. You just gotta put it in the sandwich along with the other stuff. You'll be alright. No, I get it. Some people can't stand mayo. Miracle Whip is gross. I don't like Miracle Whip. I don't like Miracle Whip, so I'll second that. Johnson says he intends to put a bipartisan tax package on the floor. Speaker Johnson says he intends to put a bipartisan tax package on the floor that would need a 2/3 majority to vote to pass moving business breaks, tax breaks for corporations, and an expansion of the child tax credit, one significant step towards passage in the House. There's a few subsets of members that have concerns for various reasons, but we're gonna probably run it on suspension, said Johnson after the impeding vote of the Congressional Institute event on Monday. And I think you're gonna get a very high vote tally, probably on both sides of the aisle. There is a lot of great policy here. It's not a perfect bill. We're not gonna get a perfect bill when we have a divided government as we do. Yeah, this kind of stuff. It's a poison pill, right? Because like you need the child tax credits, but Republicans are forcing tax breaks for businesses. Where do you stand on ranch? It's personally not a big fan. Like, I'll eat it, but Mike Johnson's day as speaker are numbered. Maybe this compromise with the radical left might do him in. Figured out the Smithsonian thing. The Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture recently unveiled guidelines for talking about race. Oh, yeah. I see that. It makes sense. But Johnson's statement largely put to rest fears by supporters of the bill that House leadership would not let it come to the floor over objections from swing district Republicans adamant about getting state and local tax relief for their constituents, as well as House Freedom Caucus members who have expressed concerns about undocumented immigrants getting larger child tax credit checks, even though they are already eligible under some circumstance. Yeah, dude. That's the issue, you know? Hey Siri, what is the percentage of undocumented immigrants receiving any type of aid whatsoever? And hey, while you're at it, Google the percentage of undocumented and documented migrants who actually take benefits, whether it be state or federal. The answer may surprise you. Siri, unpaid co-host. True. House leadership had put the text of the deal this week. I mean, like anything to sneak in the xenophobia, right? House leadership had put the text of the deal in this week's legislative calendar as a bill that may be considered, although the timing of the vote is unclear. The tax deal, which also includes restoration of critical research and development deductions, disaster relief and tax breaks for companies operating in the U.S. and Taiwan, still has its naysayers, but a rare bipartisan vote with strong showings from both Democrats and Republicans is looking all the more likely. I have a lot of faith in Chairman Smith and a lot of faith in that committee. It's got a lot of smart people in it, and came out on a bipartisan vote, 40-3. Yeah, when you know, like, when it's such a strong, like, bipartisan support, you can guarantee, like, this is going to benefit business more than anything, because, like, that's where you know you get the real strong bipartisan support. Because when it comes to making sure that corporations get the goodies, that's almost like a guarantee. The House Rules Committee Chair Tom Cole of Oklahoma told Politico yesterday, referring to a January 19 markup of the bill by the House's Tax Writing Committee that saw unanimous Republican support. Quote, everybody's doing their due diligence, and that's appropriate, but I'd say again, it's still got a lot of momentum right now. New York, New Jersey, California Republicans representing districts with high state and local taxes have been the biggest obstacle to a tax package getting the House floor. Several have said they would vote no on any tax package without larger deductions for those taxes. A breakdown known as SALT that is unpalatable to many GOP lawmakers in the conference, but Representative Mike Garcia of California, for one, acknowledged on Monday that he may be softening from that hard line. I don't think the bill as written is a bad bill, but the depreciation tables and the write-offs for research and development are all good, he said, noting that he is now officially undecided on the package. Still, Garcia cautioned that not including any SALT relief would have ramifications for swing district Republicans for tough re-election campaigns in November. I think it's a galactic political mistake for us to bring a bill that doesn't have a pinch of salt. I believe the committee has a lot of well-educated people. You'll have to really convince me that they are smart. Yeah, good point. Another issue that has rankled lawmakers on the far right is that an expansion of the child tax credit in the deal won by Democrats would result in larger checks for undocumented immigrants with U.S.-born children. Yeah, you know, gotta make sure the brown people don't get extra benefits that could be, that could be going somewhere else. The demographic has long been able to claim the credits, but amidst fierce partisan battles over border policy, some conservatives insisted on Monday that any discussion around the CTC, the child tax credit, should involve limiting the tax breaks to parents who are U.S. citizens. But, like, if the children are U.S. citizens, it's still for a U.S. citizen. The whole point of having a child tax credit is so that the parents of said child have a little bit more resource to be able to provide for that child. By the way, wildly successful when it was in play. This was like one of the few like really good policies that came out of the COVID relief plan under the Biden administration. It's like one of the few good, like actually genuinely good things that happened in that whole package was this child tax credit. But the one that gives me pause is if illegals can still get the tax credits. If you're waiting on the court system for 6 to 8 years, it creates a huge loophole. Well, then fix the court system, but you don't want to do that either. Also, the whole point is that if it's for a child that was born here, in other words, a U.S. citizen, then what does it matter? then what does it matter if the parents are waiting for their, case to go through? The whole point is to help the child, right? I can hear my dinner pulsing. Almost time to eat. Honestly, same. It has been pretty helpful here. Yeah, I can imagine. That would be a reason I would vote against it, but if I do vote against it, Burchett said, Representative Matt Gaetz said we should be reticent at this point in time on expanding those type of programs when eligibility is going to be vastly different following the millions of people the Biden administration let in. Despite most Democrats in the House's tax writing committee voting on the deal, progressives like top Democrat appropriator Rosa DeLauro may also vote against the bill because they believe the expansion of the CTC doesn't go far enough. Progressives want a restoration of the expanded family relief enacted during the pandemic, which slashed child poverty nearly in half. The expanded version of the credit proposed by Wyden and Smith would not go as far. The tax deal fails on equity, said DeLauro on a Monday statement. It delivers on huge tax cuts for giant corporations while denying middle-class families the economic security they had under the expanded monthly child tax credit. Yeah, again, like the one thing that you can without a doubt be sure of, if there's like strong bipartisan support, then corporations are gonna be the winners here. It's Taco Tuesday. Oh, it is Tuesday. I'm not sure yet. It's a tax deal that fails on equity. It delivers huge tax cuts for giant corporations while denying the middle class families the economic security that they had under the expanded monthly child tax credit. While moderate Republicans and Democrats may well be enough to shepherd the deal through the House by a 2/3 majority, the deal still has an uncertain fate in the Senate. Minority Leader McConnell has yet to weigh in on the package, and a Finance Committee ranking member Mike Crapo said he would want changes in the deal, although he has declined to say what those changes are. Yeah. Well, we'll see if this if this is the straw that breaks the camel's back for Speaker Johnson for working with the radical left communist Democrat Party. So we'll see. House Republicans move closer in a rare move to impeach DHS Secretary Mayorkas. House Republicans are holding a markup of their impeachment articles against Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Tuesday, today moving closer to taking the rare step of impeaching a cabinet official. The House of Homeland Security Committee will mark up its resolution claiming Mayorkas has committed high crimes and misdemeanors for his handling of the southern border, even though a number of constitutional experts have said evidence does not reach that high bar. The there's your issue, right? There's your issue. Expecting that these people care about evidence. Yeah. No. The controversial move could make Mayorkas the first cabinet secretary to be impeached in nearly 150 years. The impeachment effort comes as House Republicans have faced building pressure from their base to hold the Biden administration accountable for a key campaign issue, the border. While Republicans have been investigating Mayorkas' handling of the border since they reclaimed the House majority, their impeachment inquiry has moved swiftly in the new year. Speaker Mike Johnson has promised to move the articles of impeachment against Mayorkas to the floor quickly and has signaled that he will reject a bipartisan deal being negotiated in the Senate that would address the border policy. An ADT sighting, indeed. Welcome, Hambliss. While senior House Republicans are confident that they have the support to impeach the DHS secretary, they can only lose 2 votes given their narrow majority. Republicans are planning a whip check this week to take the temperature of the conference, a GOP source told CNN. GOP whip Tom Emmer told CNN ahead of the markup that he is counting votes, but we're going to have to pass that. I mean, it's pretty egregious what he's done. What exactly has he done? Exactly. What are the high crimes and misdemeanors that you're planning to run this impeachment vote on? Because, like, I'm pretty sure that if you had everything listed out, it would be pretty easy for you to kind of articulate that, right? Every accusation is just a confession. True. House Homeland Security Chairman, and like, okay, well, yeah, when we investigate, we'll find them. True. House Homeland Security Chairman Mark Green of Tennessee has been meeting with some of the remaining GOP holdouts, such as Ken Buck of Colorado, and has issued a number of memos on Mayorkas in recent weeks. According to GOP sources, Green presented his case to senior Republicans during a closed-door meeting, telling CNN afterwards that nobody had any question or dissent. Is in a sign of growing momentum for the effort, the GOP swing district representative Don Bacon said he will vote to impeach Mayorkas. Washington Representative Dan Newhouse said another moderate Republican was less definitive. All I want to hear is the arguments for. I understand there's quite a groundswell of support for it, and I just want to understand it totally. It's the Biden crime family, for God's sake. True. They couldn't impeach an actual peach. Also true. I want to hear all arguments. I understand there's quite a groundswell of support for it, and I just want to understand it. Head of the markup, Green outlined his case for why Mayorkas should be impeached. Oh, okay. Well, no, never mind. We are going to get an outline. We are going to get an outline of his high crimes and misdemeanors. All right, let's take a listen. Or let's take a look, shall we? These articles lay out a clear, compelling, and irrefutable case for Secretary Mayorkas' impeachment. Okay? So, what are the high crimes and misdemeanors? He has willfully and systemically refused to comply with immigration law enacted by Congress. That's oddly vague. He has breached the public trust by knowingly making false statements to Congress and the American people and obstructing congressional oversight of his department. That's also pretty vague. What does that mean? What false statements? Green argued that Mayorkas will willfully and systemically refuse to comply with the law. What law? Can we name like a section? And breach of public trust amounts to impeachable offenses of high crimes and misdemeanors. Green claimed that Mayorkas has willfully exceeded his parole authority, refused to comply with detention mandates, and lied for saying that DHS has operational control of the border. He cited Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, who said Congress could employ the weapons of interbranch warfare, including impeachment, in light of the Supreme Court ruling that the states could not challenge the federal immigration law. But a variety of legal scholars have poured cold water on the legal arguments Republicans are using to support their impeachment. Oh, so actually people who know what they're talking about. Got it. Yeah, translation, he refused to let us hunt Mexicans. Exactly. Ross Garber, a Tulane law professor who has represented many Republican office holders as both prosecution and defense in impeachment cases, told CNN that the House Republicans may not have presented evidence of impeachable offenses. I think what the House Republicans are asserting is that the Secretary Mayorkas is guilty of maladministration. At least, as framed right now, the charges don't rise to a level of a high crime or misdemeanor. The DHS Secretary Michael Chertoff, who served under Republican President Bush, wrote an op-ed, as a former federal judge, U.S. Attorney, and Assistant Attorney General, I can say with confidence that for all the investigation that the House Committee on Homeland Security has done, they failed to put forth any evidence that meets the bar. Damn. Constitutional law expert Jonathan Turley, who had been called by Republicans to serve as a witness in hearings, said there's no current evidence that he is corrupt or committed an impeachable offense, and 25 law professors wrote in an open letter that impeaching Mayorkas would be utterly unjustified as a matter of constitutional law. Oh man, despite outside voices, a growing number of Republicans, including House GOP, support impeaching Mayorkas. Even if Mayorkas was impeached, it was highly unlikely that he would be charged in a Democratic-controlled Senate. Mayorkas sent a letter... I don't know, man. Mayorkas sent a letter ahead of Green... Sent a letter to Green ahead of Tuesday's markup detailing how he came into a career into public service and defending his record. Quote, my reverence for law enforcement was instilled in me by my parents who brought me to this country to escape the communist takeover of Cuba and allow me my freedoms and opportunities that our democracy provides. Mayorkas wrote that the problem with our broken and outdated immigration system are not new and called on Congress to help provide a legislative solution to a historically divisive issue. Historically divisive issue. Who's the one crying about this? Who's the one that's manufacturing the crisis here? He praised a bipartisan group of senators that he's worked with, for willingness to put their differences aside to try to find solutions at the border. The Department of Homeland Security also blasted House Republicans over its upcoming committee vote, calling it a farce and distraction from other vital national security priorities. In a memo, DHS slammed the impeachment inquiry, arguing that there's no high crimes or misdemeanors, and the probe was predetermined from the start, and the process is cynical and hypocritical. In response to Republicans blaming Mayorkas for the uptick in border crossings, the DHS member states this administration has removed, returned, or expelled more migrants in 3 years than the prior administration did in 4. You see? We're more further right-wing than you. Addressing the claim that Mayorkas has failed to maintain operational control over the border, DHS has said that based on the way the law defines operational control, no administration has ever had operational control. Democrats on the Homeland Security have repeatedly bashed their Republican colleagues on their efforts to impeach Mayorkas. Ahead of Tuesday's markup, Democrats released a report calling the GOP effort a sham. The border again is another GOP talking point issue. Yep, and Democrats are desperately trying to outflank them from the right. I read Gen Alpha is being raised mostly by millennials. Are we slowly morphing into a multi-generational culture? Yes. What is glaringly missing from these articles is that any real charge or any shred of evidence of high crimes or misdemeanors, a constitutional standard for impeachment, said Benny Thompson, the top Democrat of the Homeland Security Committee, said in a statement in response to impeachment, to the Mayorkas impeachment articles. Momentum to plot a swift impeachment of the cabinet secretary picked up steam this month as key swing district Republicans expressed fresh openness to the idea after a recent surge of migrant crossings at the southern border. The focus on Mayorkas amounts to a shift of the House GOP, which has set its sight on potentially impeaching Biden in early 2024. But the Biden probe moving methodically, and a number of Republicans still skeptical about impeaching the president. Senior Republicans now believe targeting Mayorkas would be an easier lift as the border crisis becomes a defining campaign issue. I know Mayorkas did. He moved the do not remove tags from foreign mattresses flooding the country with undocumented furniture. True. Wait, Gen Alpha is Gen Z's children, isn't it? Why wouldn't Gen Alpha be raised by their parents? Gen younger than Gen Z, but not their kids. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm confused. Millennials' children's. Okay. Wait, but who are Gen Z then? Gen Z are... Wait, who's Gen Z then? Gen Z would be, Gen X's children? I don't know. The one's a bit younger than us. Gen Z are in their 20s. Millennials are boomers' kids? Yes. That I know, because I think my parents are boomers, and I'm a millennial. I'm allegedly from the 90s. Okay. I'm allegedly from the I'm allegedly from the 90s. That's why both of those generations are large compared to X. Gotcha. Gen Z are latter Gen X and early millennial kids. Gen X starts in 65. Yeah, so definitely my parents are boomers. That's definitely. The oldest Gen Zs are pushing 30. Oh. Well, we're not going to talk about that. Okay? I am eternal as far as I'm concerned. Instead of formally launching an impeachment inquiry with a House floor vote, the effort has been unilaterally run. Yeah, 30. So, you know, we're just not going to talk about it, okay? I am eternal. Instead of formally launching an impeachment inquiry with a House floor vote, the effort has been unilaterally run through Homeland Security Committee as opposed to the House Judiciary Committee, where impeachment articles are typically originate, though it's not constitutionally required. When a committee chair doesn't vote for a regular order, it's a huge disservice to the institution. The House Financial Services Chairman Patrick Henry, a North Carolina Republican, said of how Mayorkas' impeachment process unfolded. In the investigative phase, Homeland Security Committee Republicans held 10 hearings, published 5 interim reports, conducted 11 transcribed interviews with current and former Border Patrol agents. But since launching the inquiry, GOP-led panel has held only 2 hearings and decided to move forward with impeachment articles without giving the secretary an opportunity to testify. Wow, it's almost like this is all like a dog and pony show. Republicans invited Mayorkas to testify at an impeachment hearing on January 18th, but the DHS secretary said he was hosting Mexican cabinet members to discuss the border enforcement and he asked to work with the committee on scheduling a different date, according to a letter obtained by CNN. Green said that the committee has given Mayorkas a chance after chance to appear, but Mayorkas wrote that he has testified before Congress more than any other Biden cabinet official, noting that 7 of those times were in front of Green's committee. Whatever proceedings you initiate, however baseless, my responsive to oversight requests will not waver. You know you're old when no longer even the current hot social media platform, when you are no longer even on the current hot social media platform. TikTok scares me. I mean, like, I was on TikTok for a while, but then, like, I completely removed myself from TikTok because, like, it just started to get, like, really annoying. And also, it's a big, like, again, it just depends on, like, what you get suggested, but, like, it's, to me, it's just like a conspiracy cesspool. So again, I ask, what is the point of trying to outflank the Republicans on this issue from the right? Okay. What is the point of trying to outflank the Republicans on immigration? Okay. I've never used a TikTok app, but what I see from YouTubers is that it is accessible. I think so. I think so. And, like, you know, there's YouTube, okay? I'm just gonna stay, like, on YouTube and Twitch. And that's pretty much as far as, like, media goes. And video media. That's pretty much as far as, like, I can muster to keep up with. All social media is accessible. Social media in general is accessible. That's true. But like TikTok uniquely has like a very like hyper focused algorithm, and like, man, it just, I don't know, something about TikTok. You know, you are old then, I guess so. But nobody needs to know that. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Moving on. As far as anyone's concerned, you'll soon you'll lose touch with slang and then the music. Listen, as far as anybody's concerned, I am eternal. Okay. Staying with America Online. The fact that I even like understand and can relate to that, I think is a bit of a tell. You know, I actually have a I actually have an America Online, an AOL disc. Okay, that, believe it or not, you needed that disc to go on the internet. Just one that remained. Okay, just one that survived throughout the ages. Okay, it's literally a historic relic. The fact that I even still have one is pretty impressive. Okay, it's like finding a Blockbuster card. Okay, but yeah, I have it's in my what's it called, drawers. There's an AOL CD that yeah, you actually needed that to be able to connect through a for those of you that don't know, through a dial-up modem. Okay, Dad, nobody says slay anymore. You've got mail. An AOL disc is a beverage coaster? No, it's a relic, okay? It was a relic. They made 1 billion of those CDs. Yeah, I can imagine, because you needed, they would have different versions, like 1.0, if I remember correctly. I think the one that I have says like 3.0 or something. Software updates. I worked at Blockbuster. Free with every magazine. That's right. They used to come in magazines. That's right. At one point, I had 20 AOL discs. I know I had several. I had quite a few, but only one survived. TikTok already made an appearance on South Park. Unfortunately, I don't really watch South Park. And you're also the Skyrim generation. Yes, we are. Magazines were like static websites made of paper. True. That's a perfect way of putting it. By the way, I still play Skyrim. That game may be, 10 years old almost at this point? Oblivion, then Skyrim. Yes, I have both. I have both. I started with Morrowind. I think I have Morrowind, I've just never played it. Like, I bought it off the Xbox store. I just haven't played it. 12 years? 12 years? Jesus. My sense of time is a little bit off. November of 2011. Wow. I started with Pong. Okay, no, that's nah. Like, I started gaming like as a young kid during the times of the big Game Boy, the bricks, like the gray Game Boy bricks. That's about the time of technology that we were dealing with at the time. That's when I started gaming. My first video game ever was the Game Boy, like the gray brick, and it was Super Mario that came with that Game Boy game. Exactly, a Super Mario. One thing that keeps me grounded in my time is my kiddo. She didn't get out of diapers yesterday, so some time must have passed. I was always told that, like, time flies. Pong was 1972. No, I wasn't. No, I was not even nowhere near being born. I worked at the time at arcade for much of my teens and earlier college years. That's cool. I like how they're actually developing a medical tricorder now. What? Like from Star Trek? I was gonna say Starfleet. Like from Star Trek? Was mall job better than fast food? Barely. Oof. Space Invaders was 1978. I have a replica little thing that you can plug into the TV and play Space Invaders. Pac-Man was 79? Yeah, no, none of these games I was even remotely thought about being born at the time. Fast Times at Ridgemont High Discord movie. But to be fair, never felt cool. Fast Times at Ridgemont High Discord movie. I've never seen that one. It's a home device which can take BP, pulse ox, blood sugar levels, and test for some basic biochemical imbalances. No, Donkey Kong was way before my time. The original Donkey Kong, way before my time. Yeah, that was on Star Trek. Conscious Canuck. But now the 80s are all the rage. I'm okay with that. Alright, folks. We got one more story, okay? We've talked about this before, but, you know... Nintendo Game Boy in 1989. Yeah, but I was a little bit after, so I had like the original Game Boy like brick. The original Game Boy brick. Fast Times, none of one of my favorite movies with nudity. Xbox Halo. Oh yeah, that's definitely in my time frame. 2001. In the 90s, we're getting closer. Prisoners in the US are part of a hidden workforce linked to hundreds of popular food brands. No way. Wow. A hidden path to America's dinner table begins here, an unlikely source, a former southern slave plantation that is now the country's largest maximum security prison. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Unmarked trucks packed with prison-raised cattle roll out of the Louisiana State Penitentiary, where men are sentenced to hard labor. And by the way, Halo is definitely one of my favorite games. No doubt. 13th Amendment, exactly. For pennies on the hour, sometimes nothing at all. After rumbling down a country road to an auction house, the cows are bought by a local rancher and then followed by the AP. Another 600 miles to a Texas slaughterhouse that feeds the supply chains of giants like McDonald's, Walmart, and Cargill. Intricate invisible webs just like this one link some of the world's largest food companies and most popular brands to jobs performed by U.S. prisoners nationwide. according to a sweeping 2-year investigation into prison labor that tied hundreds of millions of dollars worth of agricultural products to goods sold on the open market. They are America's most vulnerable laborers. If they refuse to work, some can jeopardize their chances of parole or face punishment like sent to solitary confinement, which is incredibly inhumane. They are also often excluded from protections guaranteed to almost every other full-time worker, even when they are seriously injured or killed on the job. Yeah, slave labor. The goods these prisoners produce wind up in the supply chains of a dizzying array of products found in most American kitchens, from Frosted Flakes to ballpark hot dogs to gold medal flour, Coca-Cola, and Riceland rice. They are on the shelves of virtually every supermarket in the country, including Kroger, Target, Aldi, Whole Foods. Yeah. Some goods are exported, including to countries that have had products blocked from entering the U.S. for using forced or prison labor. What's the saying? No ethical consumption under capitalism? Yeah. This about tracks. Many of the companies buying directly from prisons are violating their own policies against the use of such labor, but it's completely legal, dating back largely for the need of slave labor, to help rebuild the South's shattered economy after the Civil War. Enshrined in the Constitution by the 13th Amendment, slavery and involuntary servitude are banned, except as punishment for a crime. The clause is currently being challenged on the federal level, and efforts to remove similar language from state constitutions are expected to reach the ballot about a dozen states this year. So pay attention, folks, if your state is one of these states, because, it's one of the few things that you actually get to get out there and directly and do some direct democracy there. Some prisoners work on the same plantation soil where slaves harvested cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane more than 150 years ago, with some present-day images looking eerily similar to the past. Because it is. Like, what else would you call it? It's slave labor. Why would it look different from slave labor to back then? In Louisiana, which has one of the country's highest incarceration rates, men working on the farm line, the plantation line, still stoop over crops stretching far into the distance. Willie Ingram picked everything from cotton to okra during his 51 years in the state penitentiary, better known as Angola. During his times in the field, he was overseen by armed guards on horseback and recalled seeing men working with little or no water, passing out in triple-digit heat. Some days, he said, workers would throw their tools in the air of protest despite knowing the potential consequences. They'd come maybe four in the truck, shields over their face, billy clubs, and they beat you right there in the field. They beat you, handcuff you, and beat you again, said Ingram, who received a life sentence after pleading guilty to a crime he said he didn't commit. He was told he would serve 10.5 years and avoid a possible death penalty, but it wasn't until 2021 that a sympathetic judge finally released him. He was 73. The number of people behind bars in the U.S. started to soar in the 1970s, just as Ingram entered the system, disproportionately hitting people of color. Wonder what happened around that time. 70s, 70s, probably approaching into the 80s, maybe. Now, with about 2 million locked up, the prison labor from all sectors has morphed into a multi-billion-dollar empire, extending far beyond the classic image of prisoners stamping license plates, working on road crews, or battling wildfires. Though almost every state has some kind of farming program, agriculture represents only a small fraction of the overall prison workforce. Still, an analysis of data amassed by the AP from correctional facilities nationwide traced nearly $200 million worth of sales of farm goods and livestock to businesses over the past 6 years, a conservative figure that does not include tens of millions of more in sales to state government entities. To state and government entities, much of the data provided was incomplete, though it was clear that the biggest revenue came from sprawling operations in the South and leasing out prisoners to companies, which is wild. Wild that this is even a thing. They're saying that this is an economic recovery, only food and shelter is still getting more expensive. So you mean like a recovery for the rich? Yeah, that's the only people that matter. That's the only people that matter. So when they say the economy is doing great, they mean that the economy is doing great for wealthy people. That's what that means. Notice how like they like to always bring up like the stock market and things like that. Like the working class doesn't have a massive portfolio on the stock market. They also say workers learning skills that can be used. Correctional officials and other proponents note that not all work is forced, and that prison jobs save taxpayer money. That's not an excuse, dude. What? You mean I can't have my Frosted Flakes cost like whatever, because it might be more expensive because it wasn't done like with prison labor? Like, come on, man. No, again, no ethical consumption under capitalism. Never has this been a more clear example. That's like an implicit threat, right? Like, how much of a verdict is it on capitalism that you're literally saying, like, look, bro, if you want them Frosted Flakes, dude, if you want your Frosted Flakes costing you $5 a box or whatever, we just gotta have slave labor, It's just you're tying my hands here, okay? You want your Frosted Flakes, and slave labor it is, okay? I can't afford rent, but my portfolio went up. They also say workers are learning skills that can be used when they're released and given a sense of purpose, which could help ward off repeat offenses. That's just insulting to everybody's intelligence, right? We all know, like, the actual, like, job preparation programs in prisons are, like, abysmal. No, but they changed the workers to stock market by forcing 401ks into existence. Without the stock market, Americans have no retirement savings. But not, no, but they changed, not but by. I'm confused. It sounds pretty reasonable to me. Did I misread that? Yeah, just like we helped African Americans, correct? Or just like we helped Africans. In some places, it allows prisoners to shave time off their sentence and jobs, so it's coercive. What are you talking about? They're not forced. You're waiving somebody's freedom in front of them. How is that not coercive? And the jobs provide a way to repay a debt to society, they say. Oh, from the previous posting, I used by forcing. Gotcha. That's not an excuse to justify slave labor, my dude. While most critics don't believe that all jobs should be eliminated, they say incarcerated people should be paid fairly, treated humanely, and that all work should be voluntary. Some note that even when people get specialized training like firefighting, their criminal records make it almost impossible to get hired on the outside. True. They're largely uncompensated. They are being forced to work, and it's unsafe. They're also learning skills that will help them. They also aren't learning skills that will help them when they are released. Said Andrea Armstrong, an expert on prison labor at the Loyola University of New Orleans. It raises the question of why we're still forcing the people who work in the fields. Because capitalism demands. It's that simple. In addition to tapping a cheap, reliable workforce, companies sometimes get tax credits and other financial incentives. Incarcerated workers also typically aren't covered by most basic protections, including workers' compensation and federal safety standards. In many cases, they cannot file official complaints about poor working conditions because you belong to the state. These prisoners often work in industries with severe labor shortages, doing some of the country's dirtiest and most dangerous jobs. The AP sifted through thousands of pages of documents and spoke to more than 80 current and former incarcerated people, including men and women convicted of crimes that range from murder to shoplifting, writing bad checks, or theft or other illegal acts linked to drug use. Some were given long sentences for nonviolent offenses because they had previous convictions, while others were released after proving their innocence. Reporters found that they were hurt or maimed on the job. Reporters found that people who were hurt or maimed on the job and also interviewed women who were sexually harassed or abused, sometimes by their civilian supervisors or correctional officers overseeing them. While it's often nearly impossible for those involved in the workplace accidents to sue, the AP examined dozens of cases that managed to make their way into the court system. Reports also spoke to family members of the prisoners who were killed. One of those was Frank Dwayne Ellington, who was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after stealing a man's wallet at gunpoint, a result of Alabama's Habitual Offenders Act. In 2017, Ellington, 33, was cleaning a machine near the chicken kill line in Ashland at Koch Foods, one of the largest poultry processing companies, one of the country's biggest poultry processing companies, and when his whirling teeth caught his arm and sucked him inside, crushing his skull, he died instantly. During a year-long legal battle, Koch Foods first argued Ellington wasn't technically an employee, and later said the family should be barred from filing a wrongful death because the company had paid his funeral expenses. They eventually was settled undisclosed terms. The Occupational Safety OSHA fined the company $19,500, saying workers had not been given proper training and the machines had inadequate safety guards. It's somebody's child, it's somebody's dad, it's somebody's uncle, it's somebody's family, said Ellington's mother. Said Alicia Power Clark, yes, they did wrong, but they are paying for it. The AP found that U.S. prison labor is in the supply chains of goods being shipped all over the world via multinational companies, including even companies that have been slapped with import bans by Washington in recent years. For instance, the U.S. has blocked shipments of cotton coming from China, a top manufacturer of U.S. popular clothing brands, because it was produced by forced labor or prison labor. But, it's okay when we do it. The crops harvested by U.S. prisoners have entered the supply chains of companies that export to China. While prison labor seeps into the supply chain of some companies through third-party suppliers without them knowing, others buy direct. Mammoth commodity traders that are essential to the feeding globe, like Cargill, Bunge, and Louis DeFries, Archer, Daniels Midland, and Consolidated Grain and Barge, which together post annual revenues of more than $400 billion, have in recent years scooped up millions of dollars worth of soy, corn, and wheat straight from prisons, which compete with local farmers. The AP reached out for comment for the companies that identified as having connections to prison labor, but none responded. Cargill acknowledged buying foods from prison farms in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Ohio, saying they constitute only a small fraction of the company's overall volume. It added that we are now in the process of determining the appropriate remedial action. Yeah, okay, whatever. 19K for someone's life is effed up, 100%. 401ks were a political neolib idea to sell Gen X on having their pension stolen, ladders pulled up, along with worthless stock options. It's part of why Gen X is retiring without savings. Effing boomers stole it. Yep. Here's an idea. Employ certified sociopaths on suicide hotlines because they have higher than normal mental fortitude. McDonald's said it would investigate links to any such labor, while Archer, Daniels Midland, and General Mills, which produce gold medal flour, pointed to their policies in place restricting suppliers from using forced labor. Whole Foods responded flatly. Whole Food Markets does not allow the use of prison labor in products sold at our stores. But you do. Bunge said it sold off facilities that were sourcing from correction departments in 2021, so they are no longer part of Bunge's footprint. Daily Farmers of America, cooperative that bills itself as a top supplier of raw milk worldwide, said that it had been buying from correctional facilities, now has only one member dairy at a prison, with most of that milk used inside. To understand the business, prison labor, and complex movement of agricultural goods, the AP collected information from all 50 states through public record requests and inquiries to correctional departments. Reporters also crisscrossed the country, following trucks, transportation, crops, and livestock linked to prison work, and tailed to transport vans from prisons and work release sites heading to places such as poultry plants, egg farms, and fast food restaurants. A lack of transparency and at times baffling losses of exposed in audits added to the challenge of fully tracking the money. I think it's pretty clear. Probably still have to feed your damn millennials, so ultimately I blame baby you. Big ticket items to like row crops and livestock are sold on the open market, with profits fed back into the agriculture programs. For instance, about a dozen state prison farms, including operations in Texas, Virginia, Kentucky, Montana, have sold more than $60 million worth of cattle since 2018. As other sales of custody cows can take serpentine route, because often they are sold at online auction houses or stockyards, it can be almost impossible to determine where the beef ends up. Sometimes there's only one way to know for sure. In Louisiana, the AP reporter watched as 3 long trailers loaded with more than 80 cattle left the state penitentiary. The crowds raised by the prisoners traveled for about an hour before being unloaded at the Stale of Dominic's livestock market. As they were shoved through a gate in the viewing pen, the auctioneer jokingly warned buyers, "Watch out, the cows had just broken out of prison." Within minutes, the Angola lot was snapped up by a local livestock dealer, who then sold the cattle to a Texas beef processor that also buys the cow directly from the prison and estate. Meat from that slaughterhouse winds up in the supply chain of some of the country's biggest fast food chains, supermarkets, and meat exporters, including Burger King, Sam's Club, and Tyson Foods. "It's a real slap in the face to hear where all the cattle are going," said Jermaine Hudson, served 22 years at Angola on a robbery conviction before he was exonerated. He said, "Especially galling because the food served in prison tastes like slop. They're some of the most disrespectful meals that I've ever had in my life to endure." Regrets double quarter pounder with cheese ham for lunch. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Angola is imposing it in its sheer scale. The so-called Alcatraz of the South. It's tucked away, surrounded by alligator-infested swamps on the bend of the Mississippi River. It spans 18,000 acres in an area bigger than the island of Manhattan, and it has its own zip code. The former 19th century antebellum plantation was once owned by the largest slave traders in the U.S. Today it houses 3,800 men behind razor wire walls, about 65% of them black. Within days of arrivals, they typically head to the field, sometimes using hoes and shovels or picking crops by hand. They initially work for free, but they can earn 2 cents, between 2 cents and 40 cents an hour. Can you imagine 2 cents to 40 cents an hour? Calvin Thomas, who spent 17 years at Angola, said anyone who refused to work, didn't produce enough, or just stepped outside the long straight rows, knew there'd be consequences. If he shoots the gun in the air because you've passed that line, you done passed that line, it means you're gonna get locked up and you're gonna have to pay for that bullet he shot. Said Thomas, adding that some days were so blistering hot that the guards' horses would collapse. You can't call it anything else, it's just slavery. Louisiana Correction spokesman said, Ken Posterick called the description absurd. He said the phrase "sentence with hard labor" is a legal term referring to prisoners with a felony conviction. Slavery. Pastoric said the department has transformed Angola from the bloodiest prison in America over the past several decades, with large-scale criminal justice reforms and reinvestment into the creation of rehabilitation, vocational and educational programs designed to help individuals better themselves and successfully return to the communities. The pay rates are set by the state statute. Current and former prisoners in both Louisiana and Alabama have filed class action lawsuits in the past 4 months, saying they've been forced to provide cheap or free labor to those states and provide and outside companies a practice they described as slavery, which it is. Prisoners have been made to work since before emancipation, where enslaved are at times imprisoned and then leased out by local authorities. But after the Civil War, the 13th Amendment exception clause allows for prison labor to provided legal cover to round up thousands of mostly young black men. Mainly were jailed for petty offenses like loitering and vagrancy. They were then leased out by the states to plantations like Angola and some to the country's biggest companies, including coal mines and railroads. They were routinely whipped for not meeting quotas while doing brutal work and often deadly work. The convict leasing period, which officially ended in 1928, helped chart the path to America's modern-day prison industrial complex. Incarceration was not used just for punishment or rehabilitation, but for profit. A law passed a few years later made it illegal to knowingly transport or sell goods made by incarcerated workers across state lines, though an exception was made for agricultural products. Today, after years of efforts by lawmakers and businesses, corporations are setting up joint ventures with correction agencies, enabling them to sell almost anything nationwide. Cool. Nice. To learn more about the history of prison labor, listen to the Reveal podcast, yada, 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 which is over here. Civilian workers are also guaranteed basic rights and protections by OSHA, laws like Free Labor Standards Act, but prisoners who are often not legally considered employees are denied many of those entitlements and cannot protest and form unions. They may be doing the exact same work as people who are not incarcerated, but they don't have the training, they don't have the experience, and they don't have protective equipment, said Jennifer Turner, a lead author of a 2022 American Civil Liberties Union report on prison labor. Almost all of the country's states and federal adult prisons have some sort of work program employing about 800,000 people. The report said it noted that the vast majority of those jobs are connected to tasks like maintaining prisons, laundry, or kitchen work, which typically pay a few cents an hour, if anything at all. And few those who land the highest paying state industry jobs may earn only $1 an hour. Although labor tied specifically to goods and services produced to state industry, brought in more than $2 billion in 2021. The ACLU reported that includes everything from making mattresses to solar panels, but does not account for work release and other programs run through local jails, detention and immigration centers, even drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities. Some incarcerated worker with just a few months or years left on their sentence have been employed elsewhere, from the popular restaurant chains like Burger King to major retail stores and meat processing plants. Unlike workers picking up litter in orange jumpsuits, they go largely unnoticed, often wearing the same uniforms as their civilian counterparts. Outside jobs, yeah, Sean Fay just started a prison division and unionize or organize the prisoners. Outside jobs can be coveted because they typically pay more in some states to deposit a small percentage earned into a savings account for prisoners' eventual release. Though many companies pay minimum wage, some states garnish more than half their salaries for items like room and board and court fees. It's a different story for those on prison farms. The biggest operations are made in the South, and crops are still harvested on a number of former slave plantations, including Arkansas, Texas, Mississippi, and Mississippi's notorious Patchman Farm. Those states, along with Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia, pay nothing for most types of work. I gotta go eat. See ya. Thank you. Appreciate it. Most big farms, including Angola, have largely mechanized most of their operations using commercial-sized tractors, trucks, and combines for corn, soy, rice, and other row crops, but prisoners in some places continue to do the work by hand, including clearing bush with swing blades. I was in a field with a hoe in my hand and maybe like 100 other women. We were standing in a line very close together. We had to raise our hoes up at the exact same time and count 1, 2, 3 and chop, who worked on the said Faye Jacobs, who worked in a prison in Arkansas. Jacobs, who was released in 2018 after more than 26 years, said the only pay she received was 2 rolls of toilet paper a week, toothpaste, and a few menstrual pads each month. She recounted being made to carry rocks from one end to a field to another and back again for an hour, and she said she endured taunting from guards saying, "Come on, hoes, it's the hoe squad." She was later sent back to the fields at another prison after women there complained of sexual harassment by staff inside the facility. Quote, "We were like, is this punishment? We were telling y'all that we are being sexually harassed, and you come back and the first thing you want to do is just put us all on hoe squad." David Farborough, who oversees 20,000 acres of prison farm, said Arkansas operations can help build character by, slave labor. A lot of these guys come from homes where they never understood work, and they've never understood the feeling that at the end of the day of a job well done. We're giving them the purpose, and at the end of the day, they get returned by having better food in the kitchens. What? In addition, that's just wild to me. Man. In addition to giant farms, at least 650 correctional facilities nationwide have prisons doing jobs like landscaping, tending greenhouses and gardens, raising livestock, beekeeping, and even fish farming, said Joshua Cibica, director of Prison Agriculture Lab at Colorado State. He also noted that correction officers officials exert power by deciding who deserves trade-building jobs like welding, for example, and who works the fields. In several states, along with raising chickens, cows, and hogs, correctional departments have their own processing plants, dairies, and canneries, but many states also hire out prisoners to do that same work at big private companies. The AP met women in Mississippi locked up at a restitution center, equivalent to debtor's prison, to pay off court-mandated expenses. They worked at Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen and other fast food chains and have been hired out to individuals for lawn mowing and home repairs. There's nothing innovative or interesting about the system of forced labor as punishment for what, in many instances, is an issue of poverty or substance abuse, said Cliff Johnson, director of the MacArthur Justice Center for University of Mississippi. In Alabama, where prisoners are leased out by companies, AP reports followed inmate transport vans to poultry plants run by Tyson Foods, which owns brands such as Hillshire Farms, Jimmy Dean, and Sara Lee, along with companies that supply beef, chicken, and fish to McDonald's. The vans also stopped at a chicken processor that's part of a joint venture with Cargill, which is America's largest private company. It brought a record of $177 billion in revenue in fiscal year 2023 and supplies conglomerates like PepsiCo. Though Tyson did not respond to questions about direct links to prison farms, it said its work release program are voluntary and that incarcerated workers receive the same pay as their civilian colleagues. Some people arrested in Alabama are put to work even before they've been convicted. An unusual work release program accepts pretrial defendants, allowing them to avoid jail time while earning bond money, but with multiple fees deducted from their salaries that can take time. The AP went out on work detail with a Florida chain gang wearing black and white striped uniforms and ankle shackles created after Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey took office in 2012. He said unpaid work is voluntary and so popular it has a wait list. It's a win-win. The inmates that are doing that is learning a skill set. They're making time go by at a faster pace. The other win is that they generally save the taxpayer money. With slave labor, Ivey noted it's the only remaining place in the country where a chain gang still operates. Elsewhere, several former prisoners spoke positively about their work experiences, even if they sometimes felt exploited. Inherently, yes, it's exploitative. I really didn't think about it until I got out, and I was like, wow, I actually took something from there and applied it out here, said William Buck Saunders, and he got certified to operate a forklift at his job stacking animal feed at Cargill while incarcerated in Arizona. Companies hire prisoners, get a reliable, plentiful workforce even during unprecedented labor shortage stemming from immigration crackdowns and more recently, the coronavirus pandemic. In March of 2020, throughout all the outside company jobs were halted, the Arizona Correction Department announced 140 women were being abruptly moved from the prison to a metal hangar-like warehouse on the property owned by Hickman's Family Farms, which pitches itself as the Southwest largest egg producer. Hickman has been employed prisoners for nearly 30 years and supplies many grocery stores, including Costco, Kroger, marketing brands such as Eggland's Best, Land O'Lakes. It is the state's correctional department largest labor contractor, bringing in nearly $35 million in revenue for the past 6 fiscal years. The only reason they had us out there is because they didn't want to lose that contract because prison makes so much money off it. Who lived at Hickman's desert site, which operated for 14 months. She served as a drug-related sentence. She was serving a drug-related sentence, said she feared losing privileges or being transferred to a more secure prison if she refused to work. Counts said that she knew prisoners who were seriously hurt, including one woman who was impaled in the groin and required a helicopter flight to the hospital, and another who lost part of a finger. Hickman, who has faced a number of lawsuits stemming from inmate injuries, did not respond to emailed questions or phone messages seeking a response. Correction department officials would not comment on why the women were moved off-site, saying it happened during a previous administration, but a statement at the time said the move was made to ensure a stable food supply while also protecting public health and those in our custody. Some women employed by Hickman earned less than $3 an hour after deduction, including 30% taken by the state for room and board, even though they were living in makeshift dormitories. While we were out here, they were still we were still paying prison rent. The business of prison labor is so vast and convoluted that tracing the money can be challenging. Some agricultural programs regularly go in the red, raising the question in state audits and prompting investigations into potential corruption, mismanagement, and general efficiency. I mean, like, yeah, you can kind of take a gather at where this is going. This is by far one of the most detailed reports in terms of prison labor that I have ever seen. In fact, I'm going to link this in chat if y'all want to just read this on your own. All right, folks. Unfortunately, I got to get going. It's time for me to eat. Folks, thank you guys so much for hanging out today. I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael Hassler and Heat, for modding the chat. Thank you to all the new follows. Thank you for the biddies. I appreciate it. Thank you for the subscriptions. You guys are what makes the channel grow. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it. Don't forget, join the Discord, like the stream, subscribe, do all that awesome stuff. Spread the word. We're here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow. See ya. All right, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.